Kath, I really appreciate that. So, tomorrow, July 24th, on 1847, the Mormon pioneers entered the Salt Lake Valley and settled what would become the state of Utah. And so tomorrow we'll have a state holiday in Utah to commemorate that. And as I was thinking about this concept of pioneers, I thought, that's really what we are. Here's a goat industry that's really not the same as it was a few years ago, and so it's something that's transformed and evolved, and now we can march forward in hopefully in this study that will make a real difference going forward. And so I express my appreciation to each of you for helping us get this study approved and getting it ready to go. So I came today to have a visit with you. I didn't come to lecture you. I didn't come to educate you necessarily. I came to visit with you and talk about the things that you'd like to talk about. And so as we go forward, please interrupt and let's have a two-way communication here in this next few minutes, because I think there's some real opportunities here for us to both be uplifted a bit by each other as we communicate together. When I think of NAHMS, all I've ever really thought of is Dr. Marshall. To me, she's NAHMS. And so I was interested to come here today and see this room full of people and recognize that, and I always knew it was a team, but to see the team and understand that the volume of work, the massive undertaking it is to put one of these studies together. And I have, over the last few months since we pushed for this and tried to get this study approved, laid awake at nights. Now I see all of you, I'll not sleep again, because to me, it's really important that we get these producers to be part of this. Without their input, it won't be as good as it could be, and the last thing we want is not enough participation to have this be a successful study. The goat industry, in my view, is a fascinating industry. It's a fascinating part of American agriculture. There are so many components to it that it's such a diverse industry, and so as we just think about this meat goat sector alone, and I won't attempt to talk about the dairy goat. Have a few dairy goats from time to time, but I'm not a dairy goat producer, and so can't really talk about that sector as effectively as others. But just within this meat goat sector alone, you've got seed stock producers. We've got club goat producers, the ones that raise those market goats for kids and youth to go show. And then you have the purebred or the frame goat producers that are producing registered stock to go out and show those as well and progress the industry through those genetics. We have commercial goats, and when I'm talking about commercial goats, I'm thinking about two categories, it's a narrow distinction, but those that are extensively managed. On our ranch, we have 350 extensively managed goats. We kid them out under general range conditions, and they're raised under those kinds of conditions, and we ship them in the fall. And so our health program is different than it is for our 100 head of club goat producing goats that are right there at the barns and that require intensive management. There are some intensively managed commercial type goats in our area, and you may be familiar with these as well. Those are the goats that are put out for grazing contracts. And so people are with them most of the time, or all of the time in many circumstances, and they're herded and they're watched over, and they're managed in such a way that they keep them healthy, they keep them moving from place to place, and those kinds of things. And so we have all of those kinds of goats out there. We have pack goats, and there are then all the hair goats, and as if you think about it for a moment, all goats will be meat goats one day. So we have all of those categories to deal with in this. But I really wanted to just visit with you for a few moments today about and get your input and share with you some of mine. Some of the challenges that we have in this goat industry. As I talked a few moments ago, it's a very diverse industry. And being a diverse industry, it's hard to get your arms around the whole thing. We've tried at the American Goat Federation to do that and think we're kind of getting there, but still, it's a challenge, folks, to get that done and to really get your arms around the whole thing, because there are so many different kinds of producers. There are those that are in my part of the world that have fairly large flocks of goats under all of these different categories I mentioned. But then you also have some that have 3 or 4 goats in their backyard, the hobby producers. And you have ethnic groups that are producing these goats. And one of the greatest frustrations for me, I've been involved in the Scrapie program on the National Scrapie board with Dr. Diane Sutton for many years now. And one of the real frustrations for me is I still run across a lot of goat producers. They don't know what Scrapie is yet. That just blows me away. What more could we do to educate people about Scrapie? It's been around, for the program I'm talking about, it's been around for so long. How else can we reach those people? And yet there are so many of them, and still so many goats, does and such that fit in the categories that should have a Scrapie tag, and they don't. The guys don't have any tags, they don't have any idea about the program, and so it's really a frustration for us. And as we go into this study, one of my lay awake at nights and spread about issues is, how do we get that group? If they don't know about Scrapie, how will we ever get them to respond to a NAHMS study? How can I reach them? How can we get them to come forward and fill out a paper, a study? And I'm open to suggestions as to how to do that, because we've tried multiple tacks to do that and have had marginal success at best. So hopefully we can somehow bring, and yet that's one of the values of this whole NAHMS study, in my opinion, is to help bring some cohesiveness to this sector of agriculture. If we can get them to understand some new management techniques, that'd be a valuable thing. Here's what somebody else is doing to manage whatever, whether it's this parasite problem, whether it's lack of income because markets, and I can talk the rest of the hour just on market diversity, but there's so many little issues within the industry that this study could really help them understand and enlighten them about. It could lift their operation from one of just bare subsistence into something of success, something that would make a contribution to them and become what I think could be a valuable small business in rural America. But how do we get them to cross that bridge? How do we get them to be or how do we be enough of a pioneer? How do we get them to be enough of a pioneer to enter into this study and see the value of it? And again, we've sent out newsletters, we've talked every time I've had a chance to talk at some convention or some group, always talk about this because I feel so passionately about the value of this. And the management's just one sector of it, as you know. Their ability to manage disease. What a value this thing could be for them. Because, as you all well know, there just flat aren't any drugs for goats. There flat aren't any vaccines. There aren't any tools out there for us to work with. And if we could get the message out going backwards, in other words, if we could get their input coming back from this study into the commercial world of vaccine and drug production, maybe we could get those folks to somehow say, maybe that is a growing sector of ag that we could take a look at and at least do something minimal, whether it's under minor use or some other sector, to help get this sector included in and bring some value to those folks. To me, that could be so valuable to us. There is a real problem with parasite resistance. I don't suffer from that because I'm up in the high mountains of Utah. And so we just really don't. If we took what Kath presented this morning, at the top of her list was parasite resistance, and at the bottom was abortion. If you took that and tipped it upside down, that would fit my area. Because we do have, probably our number one issue is something to do with abortion storms here and there along the way. And so again, there's something that really could be valuable out of this if we can just get folks to come to the table. The way we manage our flock with the administration of those drugs, of vaccines, either the failure to do it or the failure to do it correctly, to me those are things that, again, what value we could get out of this. So how can we do that? How can we best get these people to come out? You folks are out on those front lines, some, and tell me your suggestions on how to make that happen. We've done some of that, but maybe not near enough. So that's an excellent suggestion. Yeah. And that's an excellent one. And we have been trying that. We do have a presence at many FFA chapters throughout the country, but we have a major presence at the National Convention where we're reaching at least that group of what we consider to be the leaders of the FFA organization in the country. But excellent suggestion. Thank you for that. Yes. It does affect them, absolutely. And yes, we're trying to get that word out as well, and need to emphasize that a bit. Yep, excellent. And everybody that gets one out of the Goat Federation does get that now. Yeah, thank you. Other ideas, suggestions, or comments? Go ahead, ma'am. And that's an area of emphasis we're just entering into now at the Goat Federation is targeting markets to see if we can't do a better job of that. Um, and then that takes us to the ethnic groups where so many of the goats go out the backyard gate and never get to an auction. And those are the ones that are doubly hard to track, doubly hard to get those producers to get them into these kinds of programs, whether it's scraping, NAHMS, whatever it is. Uh, those are the ones we really need to reach somehow. Not sure exactly how best to do that, but we would really like to figure out a way best to reach that group of people. Yeah, wonderful ideas. Thank you for sharing that. Um, that's great. And as you said that, the thought occurred to me. My experience is that when we have a few extra goat wethers at our ranch, and particularly in our Hispanic community, if one gets wind that we have some, then they just keep coming and coming. And so there is a good communication network within certain groups, cultural groups out there that if we could get this to feed back into those groups and spread that way, that was really good. I like that. Thank you for that. That's really valuable. Yeah, it does. A marvelous sense, because it is so important that we get this feedback going back into the people, into the production area, and so producers can take advantage of what we're garnering from these kinds of studies. And it makes perfect sense to me that the better job we can do at getting that information back to them, the more effective the whole study will be. And hopefully, the more effective it will be at building some level of trust. To me, that's one of the big problems we have with this is trust. Um, so many producers are absolutely convinced that you're going to share this information with the IRS. You can't tell them any different. They're going to share. You're going to share it with FDA or whoever. I don't know what their hot button is, but some group they're convinced you're going to share this with them, and I don't know how to break that. It's like there's a secret code out there somewhere that NAHMS means, or any of these programs means you're going to share this, that Uncle Sam's going to get it and it's going to come back to haunt me, and that trust level is one of the reasons I think we don't get enough participation. And again, despite our pleadings, we haven't been able to really get through a lot of that. But hopefully feeding this information back will help build that trust level and help them to understand that this is something that can make a big difference to them if they'll just pay attention. They can stay on top of those issues. Ear tags is one of the big ones out there. We have worked and worked. If I guess you're familiar with the metal tag deal that's been out there, and so Goat Federation, in conjunction with ASI, at our sector meeting last fall, we just said it can't be. We can't do that, and the sheep guys said we can't do it because it's just flat dangerous for our sheep shearers. That when they hit those metal tags, there's problems. There's big problems. Somebody can get hurt pretty bad, a shearer can, and the goat folks on our side, we said, yeah, and those little metal ear tags are just great at creating an ear infection, and so on. And finally, after several months in conference call after conference call, we were able to get that changed to get them back to some plastic tags, at least a few for those first-time producers and so on, as you're all aware. And so hopefully they can see that there is a two-way street here and that we really are trying to represent producers in the way that'll make them better at what they do. Pardon? We're basically structured to be an organization of organizations, and so a federation, if you will. So we have ABGA, the dairy goat folks are part of us, Texas Sheep and Goat Raisers. We have all of the majors that are part of us. So in terms of actual people that we can reach, it's really a lot of people. Good idea. I'll, that's good. Yeah, I'll make a note of that one. We'll see if we can spread that word through that multi-level process. speaking of research, I went to the ARS meeting several years ago in Baltimore, and they started, and of course, the poultry people were there, and the pork people, and the dairy, and the beef, and then the goat. My goat, I was the goat person, one person, and their big concern was, how do we store all of this genomic information? How do we control all of that, and who's going to be house it, and all of that stuff? And I said, how can we get access to some kind of a program to even start something like that? And you're right. It was a frustrating experience because when it comes to research, again, it's like the vaccine issue. It's like all the rest, there isn't any. And I don't mean that literally because there are a few programs here and there, but not anything at the level that other our sister species have, and that doesn't. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, absolutely, it is. And there could come a day when goat meat could be a particularly highly demanded product in this country. Agri-terrorism could change the face of this whole thing pretty quick. Unfortunately, if it ever rears its ugly head. How do we build that? Yes, go ahead. That one I'm going to write down. Uh, that's great. Let them tell their story versus we're coming to find out what you are doing. Yeah, yeah, that's profound. I really like that. Let them tell their story. That's really good. That was superb. Thank you for that. Go ahead. that one leads me down another path. Acute fever is one that I've had a real passion for a long time, and Kath and I were able to work on that white paper group that took a look at that disease, and that's one that we need to do something about. And we don't have the tool to deal with that one. We don't have that capability, and every time I bring that up in my producer groups, whenever we're talking about that, heads drop. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want people coming to my house and asking me what I've got going in that and all that sort of thing. And again, it's just the frustration level with that is huge, because we never will get something to fight it with it being a non-existent disease, because no one will talk about it. And that's one that I truly hope we get enough participation in this study to get enough honesty out of producers to let them tell their story about that. I wish Utah was included in the study so I could do this, but that one is one that I just feel so passionate, and there's a bunch of others just like it that really need their story told, because we have nothing to take back. As you said, how accurate you were in your statement. We have nothing to take back to people who say, we really need something for this, and they say, well, how big is the disease? And well, we kind of, it's kind of like this. We think it's about this or that, or well, show me the data. And there we are. Yeah, the frustration level is high on that one too, but that's hopefully this will help get us a little further down that path. I'm really hoping this will be the case. Yeah, your point. I'm in the exact same boat as you are. I think I've had it, but I don't know that for sure. But I kind of fit the. Oh, yeah. We there's some work to be done there. There's some things that are needed in this goat industry in that front, in my opinion, as a producer. Other thoughts, comments, folks? Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah, the problem, the feedback we get is, you guys are all dog and cat veterinarians anymore. We don't have a good sheep and goat veterinarian. And on the day, and so when and I please understand, I'm just giving you the feedback. not trying to be critical here. Don't stone me. And so the one afternoon that the vet school talked about sheep and goats, I was busy that afternoon or something. In other words, I just don't have enough expertise to be able to deal with that in a lot of cases. I myself am really fortunate. I've got a super set of goat and sheep veterinarians around me in one practice that do a really good job. And when you get to Texas and some other places, they have some really good ones. And here and there are some good ones. And hopefully there's enough to cover the demand for what's out there. But we definitely recommend that they develop a relationship with a veterinarian. Else, how will they get some of the things they're going to need going forward? Both the expertise, but not just the expertise, but access to certain drugs, certain vaccines, certain things that are controlled and more may become controlled is kind of the opinion our producers have. So how else are we going to get that if we don't have access to a good local veterinarian? And so we definitely push that really hard and try to get our local vets, and they do a good job. Mine does do a really good job of educating other producers around them that come into them about the need to do all of these things, whether it's scrapie, whether it's Q fever, whether it's filling out a NAHMS study. They're on top of that. But not everybody is as fortunate as I am. At least that's the feedback we get in terms of having access to a good veterinarian. A couple of comments that you prompted me to think about in there, which were great comments. One is in terms of veterinarian access. One of the things that I was able to do, and now it's getting more of a struggle to do that, was to tell people, if you really get hurting, call the vets at Pipestone, up at the Pipestone Vet Clinic. Those guys are pretty good at that. Doc passed away and Jay's retiring, and some of those are going away, but there's still some pretty good expertise there. They're not going to have that relationship with you that you need, but they may be able to help you or refer you to other sources that could help you. Premier One, Stan Potrates and his group, they have Dan Moracle on as an expert to help with some feed issues, somewhat on health. Those are some resources that may be helpful on a national level if nothing else is available, and we try to utilize and refer those which are helpful. As far as the extension programs go, to me, those are all over the board. There are some states that have an absolutely incredible extension program, particularly for animals. And there are other states that don't have that. They're just not, the expertise isn't there. And so, again, it'd be helpful if, and maybe that's one of the roles that we should be looking at AGF more than we are, is putting together access to those good ones that do have that kind of expertise, because some of them are totally focused on gardens and those kinds of things. So and I'm not trying to be critical here. I'm not trying to be negative about extension or other any of these issues. I'm just trying to explain the feedback that we get regarding access to expertise, and that is a bit of a challenge. So we get calls all the time as to how can I get access to some help here. Here's the problem I have, and how do I get access to help? And so we can give them those general access issues, but we obviously don't have expertise on a local basis to say, here's a veterinarian you can call. But sometimes the state or federal veterinarian in a state can help them refer to a veterinarian within the state that may have that kind of expertise to help them. A couple of things from my perspective, and I don't know if I represent goat producers in that sense enough, but a couple of things is, one, here's your chance to get some real help. Here's your chance, and I really like this, I just can't get this one out of my head, to tell your story. Here's your chance to tell your story about your operation, and it will be confidential. That confidentiality thing, you can't overemphasize it, that it'll be 100% confidential. But here's your chance to get access to some really good help across the country, and to tell your story and get the word out there about, here's what I do with this. Because most producers, well, you've got several kinds of producers, but most of the producers that are going to respond to this are the ones that say, I'm pretty good at this part, or I may have a problem here, but most of them have enough self-confidence, or enough, I guess self-confidence is the word, to say, I'm pretty good at some things, at most of what I do. I'm successful at it, or I at least feel like I know what I'm doing. And so I think Joe Blow down the street ought to really hear what I have to tell him, because I can help educate some people if they just listen to me. And that's my perception, because most of the time I sit with people and the goat producers, and most of them are fairly opinionated, and again, I don't mean that necessarily in a real negative sense, but they have their opinions about, here's how you kid does. I never go to the barn under any circumstances. That doe is going to have those kids, and they're going to live, or I don't want her on my operation. And somebody else will say, well, crap, I'm not going to do that. I want to be there. Animal welfare demands that I'm in that barn, and I'm there to take care of them and help them along the way. And so we get these opinions about, here's the way to do it, and let me tell you how to do it. And so I think that the opportunity, if you approach it from that point, is good, and it will be confidential. But it will be information you'll get back, merged with the other producers that participate in the study, and it'll make a big difference to the whole industry. Yeah. And it will be helpful to the entire industry, which is a fast-growing sector of agriculture. And so, yes. Yeah, excellent. Excellent. Other topics, anything we can talk about? Go ahead. That's right. I appreciate that, and that is a great thing to include in that is that it will help for getting more research into goats. I think that is. I don't know what that looks like, but I think whatever it is, it does help get us a little more foothold on that. Mm-hmm. Then one of the other things that I think is in the way we position this, and that is that this is an offensive effort. This is something that we can march our industry forward with. This is not a defensive effort where we're trying to build barriers and protect ourselves from whatever is out there. This is an offensive effort where we can see some opportunity to make some gains for the goat industry across the United States. I think I've utilized my allotment of time, so I will conclude that unless there's something else that we ought to. To me, the best message we've got is professionals will come to your farm, and they will be well trained in how to use best practices when they're working with your animals, and you're welcome. We would like you to be there and be part of that process and understand what it is we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing for the particular result we're after, what that particular test is about. But they will be professionals who are trained in animal handling. So, and leave it at that. There will be some who will never be happy with what happens. I trust those will be in the minority, and there will be some who will be impressed with the professionality that is used in that whole process. And you will actually teach them some things about how best to handle those animals too. So I think there's both sides of that, and maybe they're both on the kind of the edge of the bell curve out there, but in the middle will be the group who won't give it a second thought. They'll completely understand what's happening. They'll walk away with a good result there. So to me, that's, you're sending professionals to their farm. Is that it, Kath? Time for me to go sit down and be done? We'll do another one. We'll get another one out. So right now, so we can. Well, it won't be tonight on the way home, but hopefully. Anyway, thanks folks for having me. It's been a pleasure.